Welcome to a brand new milestone on English in the Wild, episode 10. I am so incredibly excited for this chapter, Mark, because today we are taking all the confidence and discipline we've built in previous episodes and applying it directly to your professional life. We are talking about career mastery, navigating corporate environments, and most importantly, the delicate art of negotiating your worth. For so many professionals, especially those working in a second language, walking into a performance review or a salary negotiation triggers massive imposter syndrome. People often feel like they are begging for a favor rather than engaging in a standard business transaction, and that anxiety completely paralyzes their ability to communicate effectively.
That is such a critical observation, Sarah. And that anxiety usually stems from a fundamental misunderstanding of what a negotiation actually is. Most people view negotiation as an adversarial conflict, a battlefield where one person wins and the other loses. But in high-level corporate environments, a successful negotiation is actually a collaborative problem-solving session. You are not walking into your manager's office to demand money because your rent went up. You are stepping into that room to clearly articulate your value proposition. You have to shift your mindset from "I need this raise" to "here is the measurable, quantifiable value I have added to this company's bottom line over the last 12 months." When you anchor your requests in objective data rather than personal emotion, the entire dynamic of the conversation flips in your favor.
Exactly. And doing this in English requires a very specific linguistic toolkit. When non-native speakers feel nervous in corporate settings, they tend to rely heavily on something linguistically known as hedging, using softening words to make themselves sound less aggressive. They say things like, "I was just kind of hoping that maybe we could possibly look at my salary." All those filler words immediately dilute your authority and signal a lack of confidence to the person across the table. To master business English, you have to learn how to speak with polite, unwavering directness. You drop the apologies, you drop the modifiers, and you use strong, declarative frameworks.
Spot on, Sarah. The difference in impact is night and day. Instead of that weak hedging sentence you just mentioned, a seasoned professional says, "I'd like to schedule a time to review my compensation package in light of my recent performance metrics." It's respectful, it's professional, and it leaves zero room for misinterpretation. In this episode, we are going to build your corporate vocabulary step by step. We'll cover exactly how to pitch your ideas in high-stakes meetings, how to push back professionally when someone disagrees with you, and the exact scripts you need to successfully negotiate a job offer or a promotion.
Mark, before we even touch salary negotiations, we need to address the daily hurdle, the corporate meeting room. For many professionals speaking English as a second language, trying to jump into a fast-paced discussion with native speakers feels like trying to jump onto a moving train.
It really does. Native speakers often talk over each other in meetings, and in many corporate cultures, that isn't considered rude. It's just a dynamic brainstorm. But if you wait politely for a silent pause to share your brilliant idea, that pause might never come. You have to learn how to actively claim the floor using entry phrases.
Exactly. You don't need to raise your hand like you're in school, and you shouldn't apologize by saying, "Sorry to interrupt." Instead, use an assertive but polite entry phrase, like, "If I could just jump in here for a second," or "I'd like to build on what John just said." This instantly signals to the room that you are taking the microphone.
And once you have the microphone, do not ramble. The most effective way to pitch an idea is the PASS framework. Problem, agitate, solve. State the problem clearly. Agitate it by explaining why it's costing the company money or time, and then deliver your solution.
It's all about packaging. When you speak concisely, use entry phrases to take up space, and frame your ideas as solutions, you transition from being a passive attendee to a recognized leader in the room. So, Mark, we've covered how to claim the floor and pitch your idea, but let's face the uncomfortable reality of corporate life. You make your brilliant pitch, and immediately a senior manager or a colleague shoots it down. For non-native English speakers, this is often the exact moment they freeze. Disagreeing with leadership or even just defending your own idea against criticism can feel incredibly intimidating. It triggers a fear of sounding insubordinate or aggressive simply because you might lack the nuanced vocabulary to push back softly.
That is such a common barrier, Sarah. People naturally conflate disagreement with disrespect. But in high-performing global companies, constructive pushback is not only accepted, it is actively encouraged. It demonstrates critical thinking and ownership. The problem isn't that you are disagreeing. The problem is how you phrase the disagreement. If you bluntly say, "That timeline is impossible," or "I think you are wrong," you immediately trigger the other person's defensive instincts. You have turned a business discussion into a personal attack.
Exactly. And to avoid that defensive trigger, you have to master the art of the partial agreement pivot. Before you introduce your contrasting idea, you must first validate the other person's core concern. For example, if your boss wants a project done by Friday and you know it will take 2 weeks, you do not just say no. You say, "I completely agree that we need to deliver this to the client as quickly as possible. However, looking at our team's current bandwidth, I'm concerned that rushing it by Friday will compromise the data quality. What if we deliver a phased rollout instead?"
Notice the absolute brilliance of that phrasing. You aligned yourself with their goal, speed, but you reframed the pushback around a shared risk, data quality. You used words like bandwidth, which is a professional way of saying we don't have enough time or people, and you offered a solution with a phased rollout. That is high-level corporate diplomacy. You didn't just point out a roadblock, you built a detour.
It really changes the entire dynamic. But what happens when the situation is reversed? What happens when your idea is the one being heavily criticized? The natural human instinct is to get deeply defensive, cross your arms, and argue. But professional mastery requires ego detachment. You have to separate your personal identity from your project. If someone attacks your proposal, the most powerful thing you can do is use a de-escalation prompt. Instead of arguing back, you lean in and say, "That's an interesting concern. Could you walk me through your perspective on that?" Or "Help me understand your hesitations regarding the timeline."
I love that. Help me understand. It completely diffuses the tension. You are inviting them to act as a consultant rather than a critic. It forces them to explain their logic logically rather than emotionally. When you approach workplace conflict with a toolkit of diplomatic phrases and a genuine desire to diagnose the problem collaboratively, you stop viewing pushback as a threat. You start viewing it as a stress test that makes your final ideas completely bulletproof.
Mark, it is time for the most intimidating conversation in the corporate world, the salary negotiation. When it's time to ask for a raise or counter a job offer, emotions run incredibly high, and people often default to making it about their personal needs rather than their professional value.
That is the #1 mistake people make. You can never frame a salary request around your rent increasing or the cost of living. A company compensates you for the value you generate. To negotiate successfully, your first step is building a brag sheet, a quantifiable list of your specific achievements and how they impacted the company's goals.
Exactly. You have to move away from vague statements like, "I am a hard worker." Instead, you anchor your value in data. You say, "Over the last 6 months, utilizing my multilingual skills to manage international customer accounts increased retention by 15%. And the Power BI data models I built saved the team 5 hours of weekly reporting." You tie your specific technical and language skills directly to the bottom line.
Once you have that undeniable data, you use a firm, forward-looking script. You sit down with your manager and say, "Given the expanded scope of my responsibilities and the recent metrics I've delivered, I'd like to discuss adjusting my compensation to align with current market rates." It's objective, it's professional, and it doesn't sound like a threat or a plea.
It completely removes the personal friction. but we have to be realistic. What happens if the manager says the budget is frozen?
You don't just say okay and walk away. You pivot to a conditional yes. You reply, I understand budget constraints are tight right now. What specific milestones do I need to hit over the next 6 months to make this salary adjustment automatic in the next review cycle? You never leave the room without a clear, actionable roadmap.
Mark, as we bring this incredible chapter on career mastery to a close, I think the biggest takeaway for our listeners is that business English isn't just about having flawless grammar. It is entirely about positioning and strategy. Whether you are pitching a new project, pushing back on an impossible deadline, or sitting down to negotiate your salary, your authority comes from your preparation.
Absolutely, Sarah. When you walk into a boardroom equipped with the PAS framework, the partial agreement pivot, and a data-driven brag sheet, you completely eliminate that lingering imposter syndrome. You stop worrying about whether you use the perfect preposition or stumbled over a word, because your undeniable, quantifiable value is speaking for itself.
It really shifts the entire power dynamic. You transition from feeling like a subordinate asking for a favor to a high-level consultant negotiating a mutual win. And to help our listeners make that exact mental shift, it is time for our challenge of the week.
I love this one. Your challenge this week is highly practical. First, open a blank document on your computer today and start your official brag sheet. Write down 3 specific, measurable achievements you have accomplished in your career over the last 6 months. Do not use vague adjectives. Use numbers, percentages, efficiency improvements, and hours saved.
Yes, and the second part of the challenge? The next time you disagree with a colleague, a manager, or even a friend, do not immediately say no. Practice the partial agreement pivot. Validate their underlying goal first, and then introduce your alternative. Watch how the tension completely evaporates from the conversation, and collaboration takes over.
It is a corporate superpower, truly. And look, if you want to keep building these professional superpowers, you need to surround yourself with the right inputs every single day. You don't have to navigate your career growth alone.
Exactly! To keep mastering your professional vocabulary and to join our amazing global community, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel, English in the Wild. We post full video breakdowns, interactive communication quizzes, and deep dives into all of these corporate frameworks so you can visualize exactly how to lead a room.
And for your daily dose of quick communication hacks, negotiation tips, and high-level vocabulary you can practice on your commute, you have to follow us on TikTok at @EnglishInTheWild. We are dropping new, bite-sized lessons every single day to keep your momentum going and keep your mindset sharp.
Thank you all so much for bringing your ambition and your focus to this episode. Build those brag sheets, step into your next meeting with absolute confidence, and never apologize for knowing your worth.
Keep pushing your professional boundaries. Take up space in the room. And as always, stay wild, everyone. We'll see you next time.